In this episode of Other People's Airplanes, we interview the airshow voice. Welcome to Other People's Airplanes, a show where we bring you into the cockpit and along for the ride whenever we do awesome aviation-related stuff. I'm your host, David Allen, and today we are joined by the one and only airshow voice, Mr. Rob Ryder. Thank you so much for joining us here on Other People's Airplanes.
Nice to be here, bud.
Are you busy this week?
No, not at all. Actually, it's not as busy as a regular air show typically because we brief late. It's a shorter show than in many cases, and it's a 3.5-hour show typically. So we brief at 11:30. Have an announcers meeting at 1:30 where the assignments for what each announcer is going to do is those assignments are given out. Start show at 2:30, go till 6. Now, Wednesday and Saturday, night show, we go a little longer. But typically at an air show like I came from in St. George, Utah, we briefed at 8:30. We started flying at 12:30. We were done at 4. There are other shows like Miramar when you brief at 7 or 7:30, you start flying at 9:30 and you're done at 4:30. And if there's a night show, oh yeah, it's a really long show. So those are the kinds of things, that variances that we deal with. But here, when you're sharing, I'm sharing the announcing duties with Danny Clisham and Dave Keim as the primary aerobatic and airshow performers things, and then with Wayne Fleury and Larry Scheck-Snyder and Monty Keim, they're doing the showcase, which is all moved into it. So or interwoven into that part of the air shows. So it's not as difficult, but you still have to be on your toes and study up and make sure you get everything together and do the best job you can.
How much of a role do you play in the actual pilot briefing?
Very little. Sit there and listen, and because in each briefing there's a lot of stuff that's repeated day after day. So because not every pilot flies every day, so they do the show lines, the layout of the deal, where the corner markers are, and go through what's allowed, what's not, a brief overview of the rules that are waived, so we can do aerobatics and exceed 250 knots indicated airspeed below 10,000 feet. You know, that's one of those. Those are the rules that are waived, so we can have an air show. But then they go through the sequence of the show, and that's almost the last thing they do. And then any questions from anybody. And if I'm doing a show alone, they'll say any questions, and they'll go to ATC, FAA, Air Ops, narrator, and I'll say, well, yeah, I need such and such. I need to say see so and so after the briefing, so that we can make sure that I've got their sequence, their script, their announcers, and any other acknowledgments and shout outs ready to do, so I don't miss it during the actual show.
If there's one person on this planet who I would think might be an expert on most of the performers, it would be you. You have basically an encyclopedia Britannica of all the airshow performers, what they do, what airplanes they fly. And so when it's time for airshow, you can just grab and put into your notebook and you're ready to go for your announcing. What does it take to prepare for an event as big as Oshkosh when you're announcing many days in a row?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that about me. Number two, I would say the man who's the real encyclopedia is Danny Clisham, because he's been doing it as a huge part of his living for over 40 years, I think 45 years. So I watch him work, doing the Warbirds or whatever, and I see his notes, but I see him with more time looking up than looking down at the notes, because he rehearses in his hotel room the night before, and he's a walking encyclopedia. Now, the guy is always reading, always trying to stay current. So, and when I do Dayton with him and any other shows that I get to do with him, we have a great repartee back and forth. It's funny and fun working with Danny Clisham. But in terms of the work that we have to do, most of these guys I know. But and sometimes when I can, I bring my entire 3-binder thing of stuff to the show with me, so I can go through my own notes. I did not on this trip because of the other traveling I had to do. But more and more of those sheets that I have in those binders are being committed to my iPad.
I see. Okay.
and already I've saved 18 pounds of stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and because I carry 2 cases, one with my Sennheiser HMD26 headset for announcing, and a spare and a mixer and all the other electronic stuff, and the other just stuff like my beacon, my Whelen beacon for my car, and a tarp and bungee cords. You know, only got to cover up, you know, because you never know what you're going to do. So if I had to carry another 18 pounds of stuff, it would be awful. And so I'm really grateful to the iPad for that.
You didn't grow up thinking, hey, you know what, I want to be an air show announcer. I mean, how did this progression happen? You know,
it's really fun. There are 3 parts of this. Number 1, I always loved aviation. My dad soloed after the war, never got his license, but soloed. So airplanes were, you know, in there. Number 2, I wound up doing television in Ohio on a live television show that was, I was a singer on the show, a musician on the show, one of the cast members. It was live, 4 markets, 90 minutes every day, live, no net. Okay? You know, if you screwed up, everybody saw it.
Everybody saw it.
And that was hundreds of thousands of people every day. And number 3, ham radio. So all those things. The show I was on, the Bob Braun Show, went to the Dayton Air Fair in 1978. My ham radio operator friend said, hey, you know, you want to hang out with us and volunteer? We'll let you do some of the comm. That's before everybody had rental radios. Ham radio operators were the source for communications for the different department heads at air shows. Dayton was one of those. I said, I'd love to. 1978, I finally saw pictures. I found a couple of pictures, and there is one picture there. You can see me in the background, and there's the host of the show, Bob Braun, standing next to him, Art Scholl. And standing next to Art Scholl was a guy I didn't recognize. I put it up on Facebook, and they said, the hair is standing up on my arm right now. They said, that's Pappy Boyington.
Wow.
I didn't know who Art Scholl was, and I sure as heck didn't know who Pappy Boyington was, but when I looked up, they were, I mean, they had a Corsair there, and it was during the time when Baba Black Sheep was on TV.
Wow, that's amazing.
So there I am with those guys, and then I started hanging around, got a little more mic time, and the folks at Dayton encouraged me. I joined ICAS in 1995, and then by 2006, I went full-time at it. It's been I've done over 155 shows in the last 7 years.
So why do you even have a job? I mean, doesn't the air show speak for itself? Don't the airplanes? Isn't that enough?
No.
Why not?
Because the average spectator is not an aviation freak like you are, David, and like I am. You know, we can go up there and we say, holy crap, how does Michael Goulian do that? Or how does Sean Tucker do that day after day after day, subjecting these pilots themselves to you know, plus or minus, you know, could be 15G swing from negative to positive. And we love it. But the average spectator doesn't understand.
They just don't get it.
And so I get the opportunity to entertain, to educate, and inspire, and wave the flag and support the troops. And that's a big part of what I like to do.
It seems to me that an air show is just an air show, and the actual, so much of the excitement, which you are just amazing at delivering, comes right from the announcer stand.
I like to think that, and I think that's why I've been successful doing this. And I am a very blessed man that I get to have a job that I enjoy going to each and every weekend that I'm out on the road. And when I'm not, sometimes I'm wishing, gosh, I wish I were at a show. Yeah. You know, if I could do 26, 28 shows a year, I'd do it. At the moment, I typically do 20 to 22, 23 maybe, and that's okay.
It's a lot of work anyway. I mean, you're away almost half the time.
Yeah, but the worst part of the work is getting there and getting back. Sure. And that's why I have one of those clubs for the rental cars, so I can go straight to the car. And that's why I have access to a couple of the clubs, like the Delta Sky Club, you know, things like that make the travel experience a little bit easier. So,
what happens when things don't go as planned?
When things don't go as planned, it's usually pretty catastrophic. And at that point, I have to compartmentalize, because chances are if somebody goes into the ground, I know that person relatively well. As my friend Bob Carlton, who's flying the little Sonex jet here and flies this
little JSX-2 is a great little...
Yeah. Bob Carlton says, my heroes are now my friends. And that's the same for me. I have been blessed to be able to call these folks be part of the aviation and airshow family. But when that happens, I got to stop and say, okay, my friendship is not part of this next thing I have to do. And I have what I call a last page. It's actually on the front page or a tap away on my iPad. I've got it memorized, but there are certain things that I do when there's a crash that I learned by rote to help control the crowd, keep them calm in the midst of unspeakable difficulties. And I got those things after interviewing the top guys a number of years ago, because I said somewhere along the line it's going to happen to me, and I've had 7 now since 2007.
It's, we hate it when that happens. I cringe and get sick to my stomach every time it happens, but the good news is we have somebody in the announcer's stand who's able to kind of bring us back to reality and say, hey, look, this wasn't what we wanted. This is what's going to happen. Now here are the next instructions for you as an audience.
Yeah, and one of those things is to get the parents to turn their kids away from the scene. And another is to watch out, because there may be some officials moving through the crowd. And there's a total of 6 things that I say, and I hopefully will never have to say them again, but you never know.
I hope not as well. And in the meantime, you're building amazing excitement, and I love listening to you announce. I know your voice is kind of one of a kind, and it's just it's just great listening to you announce for these guys, and they are friends. And I've come to know a few of them, not nearly as many as you have, and not nearly as close as you have, but it's just being part of the airshow community and actually having a part in putting on the airshow. It has a special place in my heart, and I know it does as yours.
Oh, thanks, man. Air shows have an incredible draw for anybody who likes aviation at all, and and if somebody is wanting to learn to fly, it's not rocket science. And obviously, I've been involved with the folks at Sporties for many, many years, about 27 years, and people have watched me age. But I get people coming up to me in St. George, Utah last weekend. A guy from India got his private license and called me about a year ago. And at St. George, Utah, showed up with his son, who is now learning to fly with the Sporties DVDs, and his wife and a daughter. And we just talked. Mahesh is his name. And we just talked, for 5-10 minutes. It was fun. People like that all the time. Walking into Target a couple of nights ago, I want to stop in and get some Diet Pepsi for the room and some snacks. And a guy says, hey, Rob. Guy watched the video.
Speaking of those, tell us a little about those videos. You mentioned the Sporties DVDs.
Well, after my TV years had ended in Cincinnati, I got a call from a guy, said, hey, my name is Lou Sims. I'm starting the video department for Sporties. I understand that you're a pilot. I know you got TV. I've heard you've had TV experience. Would you come out and read for me and do a screen test? I did, and the first video we did was finding the right flight instruction. Then we did helicopters, the first time through the helicopter video, and then we started on the private pilot series. We are now on the 3rd complete redo of the private series. We've done the instrument series at least twice, and all through the years we do updates. Did the ForeFlight video, did the Garmin G1000 video, did the seaplanes video, flying the blimp. I've got, in terms of finished work with them, probably close to 50 hours that keeps coming back when technology changes, when the rules change, when equipment changes, and when computer graphics made that shift to the total non-linear. When we went non-linear in terms of video production and the ability to really make graphics look good, those things change too. So we do redos. So I go in, they'll send me a script. I'll go into my studio in my home in my basement. I'll turn on the big 52-inch monitor, stand in the studio, press record, do the read. When I'm finished, take it back into the control room with a cinema display, and then do all my editing, and then I send it back to Sporties electronically. They don't even come over anymore.
Don't have to. I mean, everything's so ones and zeros going through the pipe. It just works.
Yeah, and if I got a problem like intersections, how to pronounce a certain kind of intersection, I'll call them up and say, is it feisty or feasty or something like that?
Right. Because you never know.
No,
So
no.
They're running. You know, how do you get a word in 5 characters every time?
That's right. And so those things, and if there's a grammatical mistake in a script or something, I've got the authority to change it, whatever. But it works great with Brett Kobe and Chris and Paul and Phil and everybody over there. You know, the gang at Sporty's. Hal Shevers is one of the greatest guys around. Eric Radke, who's president, and Michael Wolf, who's president. Eric Radke, John Zimmerman. I have never signed a piece of paper with Sporty's Pilot Shops because they know I'm not going to do anything stupid, and I know they're going to be good. We're both good for our word. So I'll walk over to Sporty's across here from the Sennheiser booth here, walk over to Sporty's and shake hands with the guys and hang out a little bit, because they're not only my part-time employers, but my friends as well.
Well, it's so good that we're able to have that kind of a community in so much of aviation as a whole, and it's just very, very cool. Rob, thank you so much for joining us here on Other People's Airplanes. I know you're super busy, but this has just been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me, man.
That's it for this episode of Other People's Airplanes. Make sure you're checking us out on our Facebook page right here for all of our coverage, right there. All of our AirVenture coverage.
Keep going.
All of our AirVenture coverage here at EAA's AirVenture Oshkosh 2014. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Love the sound of that Honda generator. That quiet technology is just what we need here at Camp Bacon, the home of Other People's Airplanes here at AirVenture 2014. The quiet reliability of these generators is exactly what we need for our sensitive computer equipment, and the advanced inverter technology really does provide clean power all the time. And probably my favorite part about the Honda generators is they always start on the first pull every single time. Honda generators, the official generator of AirVenture and the official generator of Other People's Airplanes.
And number 3, ham radio. I've always...
You're an amateur radio operator?
Yeah.
So am I.
Okay.
I had no idea.
W8GFF.
WD4VID.
Cha-ching. CQ. Anyway.
Hey.
I won. This will make the outtake reel in the credits, because I saw your outtakes.
It's going to be in the outtakes. I swan.